to What's the Buzz, the podcast that brings you extraordinary tales from across the globe. Today, we're thrilled to introduce a man whose life story embodies the spirit of adventure and the pursuit of knowledge, Yatin. 10 years ago, Yatin embarked on a journey that would take him from the vibrant landscapes of India to the bustling cities of United States. With a thirst for learning, he pursued his master's degree at the prestigious Hult International Business School, where he honed his skills and prepared for a world of opportunities. After graduation, Yatin didn't just join the workforce, he became a part of the fabric that shapes our understanding of the market. He spent several years in the US before his path led him north to Canada in 2017. Here, he continued to make his mark working at the renowned advertising agency Wunderman Thomson, where creativity meets strategy. Now, as a key player in the analytics division at Walmart, Yatin uses data to unravel the stories behind numbers, helping one of the world's largest retailers connect with customers in meaningful ways. Join us as we sit down with Yatin to explore his fascinating journey across continents, cultures, and careers. Let's discover the insights he has gained and the experiences that have shaped his view of the world. First of all, I wanted to just check from you about your journey. How's it been? I know you were in US for a while, so how has that been coming from India to US and then to, Canada like?
I think it was refreshing. Mostly because I already lived in the US, so I had groundwork done in terms of like what the life in North America looks like, and it was then a transition. It was a calculated move, in terms of like what I wanted from life and why I'm doing it. So overall, I'll say it's just it wasn't there was not a lot of changes, but there were like when you go into the weeds and details of things, you find out that the life is very different in the two countries. So I'll say overall refreshing because life is about experiences, and every experience help you form perspective. And I think Canada may help me provided me another perspective of life that I never had before. So I know it's like a very high level, but this is the overall gist of my experience so far.
How long has it been like for you in Canada, and how long were you there in US?
US was more like less 5-ish years, I'll say, 4.5 or something around that. And then in Canada, it's gonna be 7 years now this year.
Oh, that's nice. That's
Yeah.
nice. And US was all about your education, your I think the first initial jobs, and then Canada has all been like career oriented over here, right? And
Progression.
yes,
Yeah.
and it's only been like I think you started off similar to what I do right now, like joined a marketing agency in Canada and then moved up to like now doing analytics at Walmart. So you know how has that transition been? But before that, I know we'll talk about that, but if you want to maybe just talk a little bit about your journey, like after like your masters. I know you did your masters in the US, and then your whole career path, like how has that been?
Yeah, actually, it was interesting. I did do actually two masters in the US. The last one I just left right when I had to write thesis in my final semester. So I went through the 7 semesters for my second master's. But I started my journey doing my master's in international marketing with my majors in analytics from Hult International Business School. The program was more or less around 14 months for the master's, their degrees like that, because there's no co-curricular stuff in terms of like, yeah, you are doing the co-op or anything like that. It's just like hardcore studies. You finish your master's and then you move on. So I think I came there in 2013, graduated in 2014. It was a very fun year. I never knew what basically networking and marketing meant before that, in the aspect of like like US, because US is the pioneer in terms of marketing. If anybody knows how to market themselves, I think the US folks do quite a good job at it. So, like it was a very fresh view of how things are looked at in the US. I finished it in 2014, and then I got the job before I graduated. I'll consider myself lucky. Had 2 to 3 offers at that time, but most of them are in marketing. And what I realized was that my passion was for numbers, and I always enjoyed working in statistics and all of that. Like, so this was always in my mind that I should do something in that area. Uh, like I always say it as a joke. being brown and being in the technology or the number side of things gives you a certain edge. There's a preconception that people are good at maths. So I wouldn't say that has a lot of bearing on anything, but I always take it as a joke. But that being said, I had multiple options. How I orchestrated my journey was I decided to go into analytics rather than doing a marketing job because, you know, when you move to the United States, like how they do marketing is they get super personal. They try to understand you. And in order to do that, you will have to have a lot of deep conversation around the topics that you might not be even aware about. Like this kind of sports they play, the local slangs. And it was for me very new and refreshing. And I felt there are people who I am studying with who are better at it. And there are things that I am better at it. So I recognized my own skill set and I operated in that manner that I went ahead and started my journey in analytics. I took a job that was paying half the amount of what I was getting paid in other marketing jobs, but I was looking at the overall appeal of the career, like how things are going to progress 2 years from now when I'm well versed with the like analytics world, like what it's going to look like. So I made that sacrifice of that half salary, starting my career in the US, and then I transitioned onto the next one. I worked for one and a half year after that with Daily Motion and PayPal, both good companies, very different from each other. But I mean, my overall idea was I wanted to gain more understanding of different industries and verticals, right? I didn't want to be stuck to one vertical versus the other. Um, so everything was going fine, but then my H-1B didn't get picked up, and that was one of the reasons I decided to take another program. Not the sole reason. I was always interested in data science because as I was learning more and more about it, I wanted to get like deep rooted into the world of data. I realized what is the difference between data analytics, web analytics, and data science. Before that, for me, it was all analytics, and then when you start working, you realize how these different functions operate in silos, and then the picture come together. So that's when I started my second master's. During that time, I worked with Walmart and Macy's. I got very interested in e-com and retail in general. So that's why these two companies were companies of my choice. I was trying for a while. Then I got the opportunity to get into those, and I was doing my master's at the same time, and I was working because it allows you to work for 40 hours. I finished my seventh semester. Eighth semester was about thesis, and I was in 2017, and I got my Canadian permanent residency. But because this H-1B process and then transitioning to green card is a long, long journey, especially if you are born and raised in India or China, I'll say. So it's a little difficult one. On my mind, it was always about enjoying my 20s. During that time, I was in my 20s. I was living my life to the fullest. I was doing good. I'll say if you are working in tech in Bay Area, you can really afford a good lifestyle, even with beginner slash level jobs at that time is starting your career. So I was enjoying that part of my journey, but I always wanted to be on the entrepreneurship side of things. And then that's when I thought, if you're going to be on the visas, you will have to work for the rest of your life for somebody else, which is not a bad thing. It's just like you should be able to experience different things, right? Like you learned about how the corporate sector works. You work in the Fortune 5, Fortune 10 companies with the brightest minds, and then you see what's next for their career, and do you want the same for yourself, or do you want to try more because you got one chance? So my idea was move to Canada, get your PR, enjoy the East Coast life. I was very fascinated by New York because my second master's was in New York. I mean, Pennsylvania, but I always used to travel via New York. So I wanted to live that East Coast life. And I was like, New York is not an option because I'll still have to be on the visa. I'm getting my PR. So maybe instead of going to Vancouver, now I make this transition to Toronto, right? And this is where I landed late 2017 after finishing my journey more or less in San Francisco. So I hope I covered the bits of my
Yeah,
journey
yeah, no,
until
that was
Canada.
super interesting, by the way. And even when you started with that, your transition in academics, the when you talked about that as well, I think it's super important to kind of like optimize for your success in a way as well. So I think that was I think a great move that you did. In fact, something like even when I went to my MBA college, I realized that maybe marketing is the thing for me and probably not finance or consulting. And, everyone was choosing those things. But I realized that this is my strong suit and this is something that I need to do. And that's what I kind of like, followed over there. And then, yes, even when I came to this country, I did realize that, things are very different, culturally. And, marketing is also done in a very different way. So it's really important, I think, for us to like really optimize for our own success. So I think that move that you made into analytics, I think from when we look at like our own journeys, things are very different. There would be like a different decision you would have probably taken if you were doing a master's, say, not in North America but probably in Europe or something like that. Who knows, like, so it's always like, you have to weigh out your options and see what would suit you the best. So I think that was great. And when you also talked about like all of your jobs that you did in US, like you're saying you got lucky, but those are quite quite appealing and quite sought after jobs that you had over there. So that's quite fascinating. Yeah, and I was just going to ask you, like, over here also, when you moved to Canada, like, what was did you have a hard time finding a job, or it was like, how was the journey in because you had to again like start looking at everything, once you made your move to Canada as well.
Not at all. What I heard from people and what I realized also after I moved here that that finding a job in Canada, especially your first gig, could be very hard. The reason being, a lot of Canadian companies do ask for relevant Canadian experience, and I couldn't wrap my head around that idea why that is. Right, because in my understanding, I already worked in the U.S. and I thought it's going to be exactly the same because this is what I heard from everybody. But it was not the same. I had a job before I landed here. In fact, I had to preempt my move to Canada just because I got a job and they wanted me to start earlier. So I cut short my. So after US, I did a 50-day vacation in Europe, and then I went to see my family in India because I was like, I'm not sure when I'm going to get 2 to 3 months to spend some time with my family. I was already there for 5-ish years in the US. I was traveling, but you were always on a clock, right? Like you have to come back and everything. So I found a job before I landed. In fact, I had two offers again. Lucky, knock on the wood. I think my stream was web analytics, and it was upcoming at that time in Canada. So there were a lot of jobs in the market. People were getting more interested, especially medium scale businesses and also some big companies. They wanted like more sophisticated setup. And coming from Silicon Valley, I had the experience because they move ahead of the curve. I always feel they move ahead of the curve. So I think that was important aspect of how I was able to find a job. But what I learned very quickly was that Canadian job market is not that easy. The scale of operation is very small compared to United States of America. The number of opportunities are very less. Plus, the criteria is very stringent because there is a lot more competition in the market for the highly sought after jobs that are going to pay you in the six figures, right? So but I'll say like I just found the right job at the right, like company at the right time. So I started my career with J. Walter Thompson, then it became Wunderman Thomson. So it happened all during that time. So I was there for 2 years, and I'll say this was one of the best jobs I had. The reason being because I've never worked on the agency side before. And I was always thinking from a client perspective for the most part in my previous companies, more or less, I'll say. And then when I landed the job there, I was working with Air Canada. I was working with Mazda. Then I worked with also Pixis International, like that's tobacco slash cannabis, that industry that you would not get a chance to work in a lot of different countries. So, this opens up your perspective and it diversifies your portfolio. So, like having done that, it gave me so much exposure to the marketing. And the best part about the job, that why I love it so much, was because it was creative world. This is something I did my master's in, and I never got to do stuff hands on. I wouldn't say I was preparing creatives or designing marketing strategies, but I was supporting each aspect of that business from a data standpoint, because the foundation of a lot of decisions getting made was not instincts of a particular person, but it was driven by what does the audience in Canada want? Do what we think about people want, is it working? And we back up our analogies using data, right? So which is fascinating. So it was the best of the both worlds for me. My passion was coming along with my current skill set. So things were pretty rosy, I'll say, the first 2 years for me in Canada. And I mean, so at that time, I started planning because I wanted to spend some time getting to know the country, travel, and everything. And I did that to the max. And then I started my second phase where started thinking about that I'm getting close to getting my citizenship in a couple of years. Why don't I start my entrepreneurship journey? Because I'm entering my 30s. I had my fun in my 20s. Now it's about getting serious in your 30s. So,
Okay,
yeah.
perfect, perfect. No, I think agency life does give you like that a window into like the ecosystem, so as to speak of, and it's nice to like have that quick shot of like what's going on. So many different organizations that you're working in, not necessarily that you have to be in like one domain to understand it, but even if you're on the data side, marketing side, you still get to see like how different companies operate in different way, what kind of audiences they try to tap into, the target market, their strategies. So I think it's and something that I'm really also grateful for, that when I came to this country, I also joined like a digital marketing agency. So that gives you like a great
Yeah.
viewpoint of what's going on. Otherwise, if you were to join like say just one company, your entire mindset would be exactly how the people over there that you interact with would be like. So that's, I think I think it's important for probably if you're entering a new country, I think people should go the agency route, because that just gives you like a really good idea about the market as well. So I think, and then you can just start making your moves into like any other domains if you uh,
Yeah. I always tell people who I talk to who wants a point of view, I always say, start your journey with the hardest job that you can find, because
yeah,
this will make you the most resilient. And after that, everything that's going to come your way is going to look more, like blossoming in a sense, because like you have already covered the hardest
yeah,
thing. And then like hardest jobs also give you the reality of a lot of things. The grass is always greener on the other side, when you're sitting in India or in the US, and then you come to the market and you get to experience the reality, the harsh reality sometimes of
yeah.
that particular market. So when you start off at that patch, things tend to seem better and your outlook towards life becomes positive and better things start happening eventually.
Yeah, no, that's for sure. That's for sure. No, we did cover now that we did cover things on the career side. How was accommodation like? Did you have a hard time finding like a place, when you moved over here? What was it like for you?
So I think for me, I think like when I just came here, I was in an Airbnb for 15, 20 days and I
Mm.
explored as much Canada as Toronto as possible, like all the neighborhoods, because I wanted to get a look and feel of everywhere and see where I belong. And
Yeah,
I ended up staying in Yonge and Eglinton area, the Midtown area. I think that's where you started staying
exactly.
as
Yeah.
well. Yeah, so I found the place through Kijiji. I was not ready to sign up a long lease. I knew how things work and I didn't want to be stuck into anything. So I went on Kijiji, started looking for places, found something that I really liked, which was like modern, chic, very up my alley. And yeah, when I talk to the people, it's so diverse and people understand your challenges. So one good thing about Canada is that like immigration is not new to this country. The foundation of this country is based off of immigrants to a certain extent. So whoever I talked to, they were very open to it. They had certain reservations in terms of, oh, you will have to pay higher security deposit considering you don't
Yeah,
have a credit score, which is always a
yeah.
requirement. So I tried to sublease it off somebody else, that apartment, and then I started building my credit during that time, and 6 months later, I moved to Harborfront. I'll say the market was less challenging back in 2017 than what it would be now. So for me, there were not many struggles, and people are very open to it. Have your things straight, be honest when you try to be extra smart in these scenarios. That's when you're going to start losing on the right offers and right places for you. As long as you're being open and honest, people respect that. And people in Canada are super smart to sense like any BS that you're gonna sell them. So don't do that, and you're gonna be doing good. And yeah, I was staying true to myself during
Yeah,
that
no,
time.
I think people are very understanding over here. Credit history, having a credit history is a huge aspect of securing housing. So yeah, I think that is one of the biggest struggles. Like even when I came over here, housing was I was more scared about housing than finding like a
Job.
job, because I was like, at least I need to stay somewhere. And when I came over here, I also took like a 15-day Airbnb, and people were telling me that maybe you need to extend it for like a month or two more. But luckily, like you said, we also found an accommodation in Young and Eglinton, so that was great. And you mentioned about subleasing as well. So I know that concept is not very common, at least in India. So I also did not know how that works. Is it safe? Is it not safe? But yeah, the more I get to see things over here, I do see that a lot of people, sublease because probably, rents are very expensive, and if they're going away for a couple of months, then they decide to,
Sometime, yeah,
so they
yeah.
do decide to sublease it as well. So don't the landlords or anyone have a problem? Do you interact with the landlord as
Oh,
well?
it was with the consent of the landlord. So all met together. The person who I subleased from, the landlord, we met together. I showed them my offer letter. I already luckily had a couple of pay stubs and everything in place, and I showed them my credit history from the US, and the landlord felt a lot more comfortable, right? Like my score at that time was in the towards the end of 700. So like it was it just provides some sort of comfort that the person has a good credit history. So I think that worked in my favor living in the US. I'm not gonna lie. i I wouldn't comment the same way with like the number of issues that are there in the market today with the LTB board, which is landlord and tenant board, for those who don't know. And landlords are way more scared now to do the same things. I think the market has changed quite a bit. Last 4 years, Canada is not the same country that I used to know.
Yeah,
So, a word of caution there that my experience might not be relevant or equivalent to what you might experience when you come here. Uh, and there are just challenges beyond you know the logical things that people should ask for. Where you're coming from might come into play now, which was not the case when I
yeah.
moved in. So
So true, so true. Because I think landlords are just being very cautious, because the Residency Tenancy Act is more inclined towards protecting the
towards
interest of the tenants compared
tenants.
to the
Hmm.
landlord. So yeah, I have been hearing some stories from like people who are landlords, and they've been telling us how tenants don't leave the place as well, and sometimes they have to pay money in Scarborough region and everything. I was like, oh wow, is that even a thing? So
Yeah,
it was
I bought my house, and when I'm like, sometimes I am more comfortable paying thousands of dollars in like vacant home tax than giving it to somebody.
yeah,
And like you have to be very selective if you decide to rent it. Yeah, and I totally understand it. It's a big implication on you, and
yeah,
I feel the laws are very biased towards tenants,
yeah,
and there's not much support from the authorities. Also, you get, even if they're found guilty, you will still be paying for a lot of things that
yeah.
they damaged, or the expenses that they incurred on you.
Yeah, I think a lot of people were now telling me that they're shifting their investments towards the commercial properties now, and not buying residential real estate, majorly because the commercial act is a lot thinner compared to the residential tenancy and those acts and everything. So on the commercial side, if if the tenant doesn't pay for like 15 days, you can evict them, like you can change the locks in the doors. Those are things that you cannot do on the residential side of things. So
But on the other side, an entrepreneur wouldn't like to do that unless they're in a very duress situation, because like ultimately it's their business. You wouldn't want a landlord to show up there and create a ruckus in front of your clients. You're trying to build something there, and the biggest aspect of building something is that you are good with people, you have a good image in the market, and all of these things go a long way, right? So it's also the mindset of the people. You always need a place to stay no matter what, even if you're doing business or not, right? But when you're doing business, you need to make sure that these operational things stay smooth so that you can focus on what you're really trying to achieve, right? So like an entrepreneurial mindset is going to be very different from this. Plus, as you said, the laws do support these things, because imagine the economy operates on like commerce in general. If these people who are investing in commercial properties, they stop investing in commercial properties, nobody is buying it, how the industry is going to grow if everybody will stay scared? And
yeah.
this is a big chunk of revenue for the government. No matter what happens to the people here, government is not going to want to lose their part of the tax. They love taxes in this country.
I know. There's so many taxes to pay and so much of insurance as well. That was a big shock for me as well over here when I came. The one difference that I see, I don't know if that's there in the US as well, but here there's an insurance on everything. So, you have to take insurance for just about everything over here, and they're not
It's way more
as
expensive.
well. Okay.
Yeah. So in the US, the insurances are there. And like recently, if I take an example of car insurances, they have gone up. But what I pay for my insurance here, even after if it has increased, I was paying one fourth of that insurance back in US. I think the thing is it's about economies of scale, right? Like the population of US is over 400 million, and the insurance price get divided among all these people. And a lot of regions in US are not as harsh weather conditions as there are in Canada. So like it's more prone for insurance companies to end up paying insurance claims. And ultimately, the cost is divided among the number of people. When the population is 40 million versus 400 million, the same cost needs to be divided there. And then the other aspect you need to understand is like if you talk about the breadth of Canada, all the cities are located on the borders of United States, and the breadth is the same. The number of people in these regions, they are less. So obviously the cost of insurance is going to be super high. But I think personal opinion and reading into the data, working in the analytics industry, I think it has a big uh, a big aspect of this economy that I don't personally like, and which limits the opportunities for you if you really want to grow in Canada. It's very hard. Passing certain threshold, you need to give money to the people. No matter how hard you are working, it's about social. I mean, at least what they say, right? And then if you think about it, every time all the policies are biased towards benefiting these monopolies, duopolies, and quadropolies. Like all the sectors, there are only few companies. You can deny, it's not admissible anywhere, but you cannot deny that their plans and everything seem very at par with each other, as if behind the scenes there is some sort of collation going on, that like they're agreeing no matter who you go to, you are ultimately as a consumer, you're screwed. And then we talk about, like I'm okay with high prices. Like I love buying things also at times which are like very premium priced for the quality, for the service you get. The thing is, you pay these insurances, you talk about health insurances, you're paying higher taxes. In the US, the taxes are really high, especially in California. It's almost the same as like Toronto region or Ontario region, right? But then you get the services. Like what are you paying your health, like medical taxes that you pay? Like a big part of your salary is free healthcare. You need an MRI, you will not be able to get an MRI even unless you are dying for the next 8 months. So it's not about the amount of money you pay, it's about the ROI that you get after you spend some money. Yeah, and which is very low for majority of these things, right? Like I wouldn't say that I was really impressed by the infrastructure, the policies, even finding a doctor. It will take you months to find a doctor over here. So things are not as green as they appear. I'll say US although the healthcare is very expensive, but once you get a good plan, you are paying $500 out of your pocket every month. You're paying indirectly here too. You just pay directly over there. At least you're going to get the services. You can walk into an emergency clinic and you might be able to get services faster compared to Canada. And this is nothing against Canada per se, but the policies, how the systems are designed, are not efficient. It's a problem of the system, not a problem of the country. But technically, the system needs to resolve these problems, right? And nobody is working in that direction. At least I haven't seen much change in the last 7 years.
Okay, okay. No, I get where you're coming from, and I was going to ask you this only. Like, we talked about, career accommodation, and the fact that touch wood everything worked the way you wanted to. But I was going to ask you, like, what were some of the difficult things that you had to face when you came here? Like, healthcare, like you mentioned, it's so difficult to find like a family doctor. So probably that will be like one of the difficult things to do when you come here. But anything apart from that, did you feel like anything was difficult for you when you came over here to
I think I just talked about the good things. To be honest, there were way more challenging things I faced in Canada. Even then, I faced in US, and I had no credit history. I was just a student. I found things to be way more easier. Canadian market is a little tough to navigate compared to like finding good job opportunities where you can see continuous growth is not that easy. I'm not talking about my personal experiences because I work for like one of the giants right now, and like I love this company. Like I work with them in the US, I'm working with them here. It's like one of the best companies that I work for. But like I've seen people who are like really good friends of mine. Like the thing about it is like who you are as a person is going to determine the level of challenges. I faced a lot of different challenges in a lot of different things that every time you want to go out of that, like from that six-figure marks to journey to that seven figures, the policies are going to crush you because it's a socialist economy. If you are as a person who wants to grow, who is staying away 15,000 miles from their parents, their family, just for that, and you're working extra hard, uh, forget about the actual, like difficulties that you encounter at every step of the process. Like you will majority of the extra money you are making, you're going to pay for socialist policy. And the thing is, for me, it's not the hard work or giving the money to the government, but it's all about where it's getting spent. Like I cannot put my head around. I don't live in the same Canada that I moved into, right, in the last 4 years. What is your money getting spent into? If you talk about the policies of this country, like every day there's a new law or policy coming that maybe I cannot understand. It's about 5-year kid can choose their gender. Sure, like they are in a very good state to make that decision. Think about it as a family man who wants to start a family. They don't know how to properly, like tie their shoes at that age, and they're making gender decisions, right? Like, so I'm not against like diversity and openness towards like, different preferences. I call them preferences. I differentiate them from the gender part, but I'm open to that, but like that is something mind blowing to me. Then you will see in Vancouver they made cocaine legal, right? They are making heroin legal. They are giving drug kits in the market. If you zoom out of the situation, and then they are providing assisted suicides, right, for people that really need it. Nothing against it, like, but it's a part of the government policy. They're doing all of it. What are you really trying to do? You're not talking or solving any of the real problems that people face on a day-to-day basis. You're just giving them escape solutions. Like for all these things, these are just escape solutions, and I don't know where the market or the economy is going. So the thing is, when you are paying so much taxes, you want to reap certain benefits that come to you. All you're getting is higher taxes, and there are no benefits. If you're a hardworking person, you are making more than average, you need to contribute to our socialist economy. Great, you can help people out, but not people, not you want to support the right things. And in my opinion, some of these things are, I have a different point of view. I think you should solve the problem at source. You don't give somebody, if every day you are getting a headache and you start popping an aspirin, that's not the solution. The solution is you need to go find why this headache is happening every day, what's the source of the problem, and you need to fix that problem. I haven't seen that happening for a very long time. And nothing but the probably the system people were thinking, or maybe I'm not that smart to
Yeah.
comprehend
No,
or
not
understand
really,
these things.
actually, because those kind of conversations are happening everywhere. Like even at my workplace, these are the conversations that we are discussing each and every day, like, why are certain things happening the way they are, what's the entire logic behind it.
Rational behind it. Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of people are like, and no one says that we're against these things, but there needs to be like a rational behind, like, why, what's like the end goal that you're looking at. So it's interesting you mentioned that, because I have been like, hearing these conversations happening a lot more. And you've been here, I know, for a while. It's new for me. I know you speak about how things were different probably 4 or 5 years back. And now, when I also talk to people who have been here for a while, they do share that sentiment, because they have seen how things were, a couple of years back versus
Yeah.
compared to, how things are right now. So,
So I think I want to give one more bite in this context to you. Like a lot of time I get these questions, people when I talk to like back home who are trying to come here, right? Like, see, just because there are problems doesn't make a country good or bad. I think we have our own set of challenges in India. We have the same set of challenge, a different set of challenges over here. The thing is,
yeah,
it will really depend. I think ultimately, many times people get to learn about these things and they try to make a plan that you will be able to navigate through these
yeah,
challenges. What they don't anticipate is what their life is, where they stand in India, the trajectory of growth that India is on currently
yeah,
versus Canada is, I think, getting close to a saturation point. I could be wrong for some time at least. I'm not saying it's forever thing. Obviously, the economy is going to go up at certain point, but from a timing standpoint, if you're thinking of moving to Canada now, I wouldn't say it's the best time unless you have a great skill set or your life in India is not very good. You're coming from that strata of the society where anything extra you get is going to be better. Because today, if you're in metropolitan cities in India, the lifestyle, the quality of life, the cost of living index, all in all these metrics, and you evaluate,
yeah,
metro cities of India are doing better than metro cities of Canada. And it's just factual and completely based off of data. There's no, and especially if you are like coming with a skill set, right? Because majority of the immigration that the government wants here is also with a good skill set, right? And especially in the area of STEM. So you need to really think about the decision you are making because what I learned from people who have moved, who were making 20 to 25 lakhs, per annum in India, and they are making 120K here, they feel the pain that they were doing way better and the growth trajectory was way stronger for their career because the economy was overall growing. So what you want to get away from it is like, don't get discouraged or encouraged by any comments being made anywhere. It's a very individual journey.
exactly.
Luck factors comes into play, your skill factor come into play, who you are as a person, your personality comes into play. A lot of things will define how you will do, and you can succeed anywhere with those traits. So what you really need to think about is like, you want to go against the wind or you want to go with the wind, because you're going to get faster. No matter how fast you are, you're
Yeah,
going to get to your destination faster, like in one place. But on the other hand, when you want to enjoy the journey, when you embrace the wind coming on your face, it's not a very bad idea to be in Canada. The air quality is very fresh and nice, especially if you're coming from Delhi and NCR.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Exactly. No, I was gonna say the same thing. I know, like, when you talk about it from like a career point of view or a career growth point of view, and standard of life point of view, obviously there are a lot of good things that you see in India, you know. But when I make that argument about Canada as well, I'm always like, hey, at least we don't have that problem of at least the air quality index and everything over here. Plus, so yeah, and I think if you love nature and everything, I think it's a good country to be in, explore, travel. I know there
It's a
are a lot.
beautiful landscape being in Canada. But the kind of person I am, I would say that I like where India is right now and the direction it's heading in. I think I have my own set of biasnesses. I'll take bad air quality over other things that are happening in the country right now. So
True, true, true. No, that's fascinating. Let's move on to slightly easy topics now. We covered all of the hard parts. What do you like about, like, Toronto? Like, what are some of your favorite go to restaurants? What do you like? I know we go out every time, and you're recommending like new places for us to hang out and have brunch or lunch or dinner. But what's like your best food spot over here?
I think I'll just give you one because there are a lot in every category, but I like Thai food and
Hmm.
Pei or Pai in downtown. I think that's one of my favorite spots. Whenever I want to go, I always go there. Recently, I went to Era. It's a restaurant with beautiful view in downtown. I'll say food was okay, but like you know, it's worth the money for the view and the experience. So I think these are the two I'll let you go with. So these are the two favorite spots. But you go in every category, Italian, brunch places. I'll have a different one to pick
Yeah.
from. So, but yeah, pay or pie. I don't know how
Yeah.
people say it. Different people say it different way, but that's so
They,
far
they,
my
they,
favorite.
they opened like one in Young and Eglinton as well. They call it
I know.
Pie Town. So, so
Ooh.
last time I was there, I was like, oh, let me go grab something in that place, but couldn't. Maybe we'll do that next time we meet. But yeah, I mean, Toronto has, at least from a food aspect, you get like so much variety of food over here from all different places of the world. So that's really uh,
The worst part here is I would not lie. The Indian food, especially the North Indian food in Canada, is below par. It's nothing like what things taste back home.
I know.
Yeah, so this is the worst part. I think like my favorite restaurant in that sense is Cow Gully. I really like their
Yeah.
food. It's again in Yonge and Eglinton. I enjoy that restaurant, but rest every other cuisine, I think there are amazing, amazing restaurants, but there's still a lot of opportunity for amazing Indian food, North Indian food, I'll say, in
I know, man.
Toronto.
I also crave that so much. I'm going back to India, and literally, that's
You
the
told me.
first thing I want to look at. When I go back, I want to eat, as much as possible. But yeah, that's kind of where I am at as well. But that's all I had. Like those were all pretty much all the questions that I wanted to cover. It was great, like catching up on all of these things. It's
Likewise, man.
Yeah, it gives me like a good recollection of everything we have talked about, every time we meet and things like that. So definitely like, great kind of like catching up on all of these topics and everything. So thank you kind of like for doing this.
I'll before you go, I'll
Uh,
ask you a couple of questions, right? Like, I mean,
Go ahead.
you are
Shoot.
always very well articulated, very
Mhm.
diplomatic
Yeah.
about many things. I like your personality overall,
Mhm.
but like I like to see the raw side of Harry Nayak, who he is as a person. So there were two questions on your list. I mean, we directly didn't cover
Yeah.
it, but indirectly did, and I want to ask you. What is the best thing that you have liked in Canada? Raw, unedited. I don't want you to filter your words, and what's the worst thing or the things that you don't like, if I say the Harry way, like an uncut raw, up to you if you want to put it on a video or not, but I really want
Yeah,
to
yeah.
hear from you.
No worries, no worries. No, definitely. Like, I know I've had a short time, not as long as you, but one thing that I really like over here, I think it's the dignity of labor, because I work in with a lot of like small and medium sized businesses. I see, people from all different types of background, like, living life like the way they want to, and living good comfortable lives, I would say. I mean, obviously there are struggles and everything, but all the way from like people who are just maybe like electricians, home services, people in home services, all of those guys also, like you don't feel like there's a difference between like a person doing a job in IT versus like a person doing a job in home services. So I find that really like and no one looks down or anything at any of those type of jobs. And in fact, there are times I've seen that people doing work in home services are making a lot more than people are making in probably IT and marketing at times as well. So that is something that I thought was very interesting. Back home we will never think of doing jobs. Maybe doing like a Uber or something like that. But over here, students do that. So that's very commendable, admirable. I know that there are struggles and everything. There's a downside to all of it, but it's just every time I go like do like an Uber ride, it's so interesting to hear a story of you know, I sometimes feel like some of those kids are more talented than I am at times, because they're like, yeah, I'm just in doing my computer science degree from this college and everything, and just doing Uber rides on the side. So though that is something that I definitely do like. What was your second question? I totally forgot.
The second question was, what's the worst thing that you found about Canada, or something that you don't like at all?
Yeah, and on this side of things, I would agree with what you had told me, that about the career growth aspect. Like even back home in India, like the way my career was going, you know I could make those switches and jumps really fast, because I came from that academic background, plus my the places where I was working, and you have headhunters over there who would like poach you, and life could kind of like move fast. You would not have to like struggle that much when it came to career over there. Like if you were say working at Facebook, Meta for like a year, 2 or 3, there would be recruiters from Google automatically like dropping in your inboxes and being like, hey, start interviewing with us, because that should be your next career path. So life would somehow like it's we say that India is so chaotic, but there's always like a path that automatically gets
Beauty
formed.
in that chaos. There is
Yeah,
like
there's
always
beauty
beauty
for
in
sure.
chaos that you can
But
find in
here
India.
it's very here people don't look at all of that, maybe because of where we come from. We're not actually white people, so I think those kind of struggles are definitely something that is there. But like you said, I'm a
Interesting.
very diplomatic person, so I will always try to like in my mind only, I'll try to put like a positive spin on it, that I'll be like, hey, it means that I need to hustle more, figure out a way out of this mess. But yeah, that is something that I did feel like was difficult, and
I think
even like the second thing that I would say is that, and maybe it's just me, but because there are a lot of immigrants that come in, I think all of the immigrants, I think they start forming their own communities and their own groups, and like a lot of people like I talk to, like if I have Italian friends at my workplace, they would just be my professional colleagues, but back home their personal friends are their own set of like Italian people. And same goes with us as well. Like we'd be probably talking to a lot of our Indian friends personally, even though we might be in a more diverse workplace. So I think that will come with time, like when more and more cultures start like mixing with each other and everything. I think that's when other people will also like our culture, and the other way around and everything. So that's something I feel like, maybe I don't know if it's just me, but that is something that I feel like it's been 2 years for me over here. But I feel like I have more like majority of my friends are Indians, compared to like I would
yeah,
like personal life to also be as diverse as my workplace life. So yeah, that's
yeah.
where
I
I'm at
think
as
you touched on two very interesting things. One, when you mentioned about it, I think Canada was very open and more diverse. But I think the South Asian community, and I'll try to be diplomatic with my words here, is not in the same place as it used to be. A lot of things have changed. The geopolitical environment has created some sort of. I have been feeling it. I've been hearing from people. I haven't experienced it yet, so I'm not going to comment on it. But I have seen things happening where there is a little bit of non-preference towards South Asian people that's growing overall. I've been lucky to work with people who are like my friends beyond work too, but I think I established that relationship over the years. But for some reason, like sentiment and things have changed because of the geopolitical environment and the tension between two countries, things happening from both sides. I never know the story behind it, but good thing you touched on that because you're not the only person who called it out. All of my friends who have moved in the last 3 years, they have been telling me the same thing. And trust me, back when I moved in, things were not the same. It used to be a very different country. But I think as the environment, the condition, the economic condition, also Harry is shifting. People from South Asian descent are very, very hardworking people. They would at times they will compromise on their needs to give the best at jobs, which can create a sense of insecurity for people who have been established and who have a certain lifestyle and everything. So, I see that competition in a very positive way. It's going to bring out the best in other people too, who have been living a more laid back life, I guess. So it's a reality check. 99 percentile doesn't mean you get into IIT or IIM. So I think we are building that mindset here. So yeah, as you said, it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it will take time for things to catch up, and then the hopefully back to a more cordial place. But good option. I would never expect Harry to be very open and saying things as they
I
are,
know.
but I
I
love
think
that.
I've always been that way, but yeah, sometimes my wife also complains, like, why can't you just like take my side? I'm like, no, we have to see both the sides of the story. So, that's a
Yeah,
regular conversation at my place as well. That, it's something that
it's not
I
about your side or my side, it's about the right side.
true, true, true. But great, man. Thank you for doing this. I really appreciate you taking out time. I know, we're doing this over a weekday, so especially with the job and everything, but thank you for doing this. As our conversation comes to a close, we'd like to extend our deepest gratitude to Yatin for joining us on What's the Buzz. To you guys, we hope you found inspiration in Yatin's story and that it sparks a journey of your own, wherever it may lead. Until next time, keep buzzing with curiosity and remember, the world is full of stories waiting to be told.